Venus, the planet of love, pleasure, desire, relationships, beauty, luxury things, things that make life yummy and worth living, is going retrograde from March 1st through April 12th. And don't worry, just because Venus is going retrograde doesn't mean it's a bad thing. But this does mean a reevaluation time for Venus. This does mean a introspection. This does mean maybe we're questioning some of our relationships or some of the other sort of Venus ruled things in our lives. So we're going to be talking about the astrology of Venus going retrograde in the sign of Aries through Pisces from March 1st through April 12th, what it means for the collective generally, and also most importantly, what it means for you and your sign. So if you're just joining me, my name is Alexander Creek. I'm an astrologer and an intuitive. I do personal birth chart readings and also all these readings on YouTube. If you're just finding me and you're liking what you're seeing, make sure that you like the video, you subscribe to the channels, and you turn on notifications so you don't miss a video. And also maybe leave a comment and let me know how you're feeling this Venus retrograde, any interesting observations you've noticed with this retrograde for you. I would love to hear from you. So let's go ahead and talk about this energy. So like I mentioned, during Venus retrograde, Venus might feel maybe some dissatisfaction with the areas of life that are Aries and Pisces for you, because that's where she'll be going retrograde. You also maybe want to keep in mind your Taurus and Libra houses in your birth chart. And I will mention those when we get into the rising sign horoscope section, because Venus rules those signs. We also have Taurus and Libra in our chart somewhere. Even if we don't have planets there, we have houses ruled by those signs. So she might be looking for some kind of switch up. She might be a little bit bored, with the same pleasures and things, like, different like relationships that we might be questioning. For me, like to give you an example, Aries is my sixth house, and that is work. That is health. That is my daily grind. And, I'm kind of thinking I can even almost feel this retrograde coming before it happens. And I'm kind of, for me, it's like, I've been like thinking about my workout routines and my gym. That's like an important part of my life. And I'm like, I kind of want to switch up my gym. I'm just like bored with it. It's always packed. I'm thinking maybe joining like a yoga studio or something like that. I can kind of feel Venus sort of slowing down, and it's making me kind of feel like where at least it's going to start. I'm sure there's going to be some surprises because you can't always predict everything with astrology, even like looking at my own chart. But I can kind of tell where those surprises may happen. So, and just a couple little guidance tips I'm going to give you during a Venus retrograde. I would maybe avoid big, expensive luxury purchases during a Venus retrograde, because sometimes after we make those purchases, we might have buyer's remorse when Venus goes direct, because like the thing that we because Venus is really wanting us to go within, to be a little bit more introspective or to question what we are desiring and to question sort of what we want. And it's sort of like if you're just sort of trying to fill this sort of hole, you might have a little bit of remorse when Venus goes direct. It's like that thing that was so shiny might not be that shiny anymore, or that relationship that we jumped into during a Venus retrograde. We might kind of be feeling something, somewhat of a different way about it when it goes direct. So this brings us to relationships. We might be questioning our relationships and questioning our commitments. I would maybe avoid making drastic, big, impulsive changes during a Venus retrograde. New love can certainly come into our lives, or new relationships or new developments in relationships can certainly come in. They come in when they are supposed to, in my view. However, I would maybe just proceed slowly, and maybe question like if this is the right fit for you. It could absolutely be you can meet the love of your life during Venus retrograde. I don't know what your chart looks like. That certainly could happen. But I would just maybe take things one step at a time. A lot of us like to change our appearances, especially if we're like a Venus ruled sign. Let's say that you're an Aries rising, you really might be, or Pisces rising, because Venus will be transiting through your first house of self, of identity, of appearance. You might really want to make I really want to cut my hair and do something different. I totally say go for it. However, I would avoid anything too permanent, during a Venus retrograde, like, getting a big tattoo, like right on your neck or something during a Venus retrograde is not something I would recommend. Especially if this is something that is like occurring to you during Venus retrograde. You're like, I really want to do this now. All of a sudden, I would maybe hold off on body modification, excuse me, or just things that are drastic and permanent during a Venus retrograde. However, I would encourage, like, play with your appearance, play with how you adorn yourself, how you create beauty in your world. That could be something that you are wanting to do differently. Absolutely. But I would just avoid anything too drastic, especially if it's like really, really impulsive. But if you're like, I want to cut my hair and dye it, I'm like, why not? Go for it. Your hair grows back. You can change your color if you want later. Like, who cares? That's fine. Just don't get a giant tattoo on your face during Venus retrograde. So, let's talk a little bit about the dates and the astronomy and the astrology of this Venus retrograde. So Venus retrogrades, first of all, happen about every 18 months, and the cycle actually repeats itself every 8 years. So Venus will go retrograde in the same sign or signs, essentially, about every 8 years. And this is due to Venus's like orbital cycle. I forget what it's called, but when Venus sort of orbits the sun, she creates like these beautiful, like geometrical, like swirly patterns that are like beautiful and symmetrical and balanced, like very precise. So she has these like beautiful repeating patterns and cycles. I forget exactly what the word is called when you look at the patterns of sort of what Venus is creating, like in the solar system as she sort of orbits the sun, but they're in these really beautiful patterns. And it really lines up with the with the significations of Venus in astrology, which is love, balance, beauty. And, when you compare this to the orbit of Mars, Mars's orbit is jagged and crazy. And, its significations are heat and war and conflict. It's sort of giving this like jagged kind of crazy energy. So that's kind of really interesting to see. But when we look at what this means in our lives, Venus went retrograde in the same pair of signs, so Aries and Pisces, on March 4th through April 15th of 2017. So you might want to look through old texts or old diary entries or social media posts, kind of what you were up to then. Obviously, there's different cycles sort of happening then, but you might want to think about what's happening then. And if something crazy, horrible is happening to you at that time, I wouldn't worry and, be like, oh my God, something really bad is going to happen to me. It might be, but you kind of want to take like a wider view and be like, okay, so those things, home, are they my relationships? Is it my work? Is it my money? It's like those same life areas are likely to be a theme or be a focus, but it doesn't mean that we're going to be struggling with those things, or it doesn't mean that we're going to be, feeling that sense of struggle or something. But those life areas are likely to play a role for you again, and it'll be interesting to see kind of what is going on and what themes in life are repeating themselves every 8 years. If you want more information on that 8-year repeating pattern, I highly encourage listening to the Astrology podcast. They do crazy long episodes, crazy in-depth for free, which blows my mind, about Venus retrograde in history, about how different cycles in people's lives repeat. They did an episode actually on Charlie Chaplin and Adolf Hitler, and because they were born just a few days apart. And I think they both had Venus retrograde in their birth chart. So they went and looked at all these life events. I mean, obviously they had two different careers or two very different people. Obviously one's a horrible person, but it was crazy how certain things that happened in their life were really kind of parallel to each other because of the astrology. So it's really like this really kind of fascinating echo. So during a Venus retrograde, obviously any retrograde is all based on our perception here on Earth. Venus does not actually go backwards, but that's, of course, what it looks like in the solar system. So every Venus retrograde, Venus starts to sort of slowly crawl backwards, and she meets the sun and she disappears from view. This is mythologically, archetypically, I love that word, archetypically. Like, I'm quite 100% sure exactly if I'm using it correctly. But a lot of ancient cultures have a sort of Venus figure that sort of enters the underworld, disappears from view, and goes to the underworld. And this has very much to do with Venus going retrograde. The oldest myth, I think, being Inanna. Questioning, getting a lot more introspective, entering the underworld and going through her own kind of deep process. During this Venus retrograde, she will conjunct the sun on, I believe, March 22nd, and then disappear from view in the sky. And then she eventually reappears in the beginning of April, and she actually reappears as a morning star. So she rises in the morning versus in the evening. And she will return as a morning star in the sign of Pisces. And it's like there's this whole evolutionary process that Venus goes through that we are sort of going to be sort of reflecting in our lives. So by the time that she reappears as a morning star, we'll have gone through kind of this whole process ourselves, and we may have a whole lot more clarity by the time that Venus goes direct on April 12th. So let's talk about these signs that Venus is going to be going retrograde in, with what that might mean kind of maybe for us collectively a little bit. So first of all, again, Venus retrograde March 1st through April 12th. Venus will be stationing retrograde at, believe, let me double check. I can't ever remember. I didn't write this down for some reason. Let's see. I think it's 9 degrees of Aries, or it's 10 degrees. It is 10 degrees of Aries. And what's interesting is that we're going to have a solar eclipse near that degree in late March, and Mercury is also going to be retrograding at that degree. So there's a lot happening in our natal charts from 8 to 10 degrees of Aries. I would also say Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn as well. So if you have planets in those degrees, this time might be a lot more pivotal for you. And, things in the collective, I just think that we're going to be talking a lot. It's like whatever is happening in the collective right now, we're going to be talking a whole lot about, and there's going to be a lot of action around. I do feel like Venus going retrograde in Aries, Venus rules women in general, rules like femme people. It rules, I would also think, because Venus is unconventional in the sign of Aries, this is a big significator for queer people as well. So I feel like women fighting for their rights, queer people fighting for their rights, femme people fighting for their rights, protesting and fighting, I think is a big part of Venus going retrograde in Aries. Or like women warriors, or people like it makes you think of the original protests at Stonewall that kind of sparked the gay rights movement of throwing a brick at the cops who are harassing queer people night after night after night, and people just being like, I am not taking this anymore. So because Venus rules love and fairness and equality. And in the sign of Aries, she's going to fight you. She's going to hit you. So this does Venus going retrograde in Aries for this first part through really most of March 2nd through March 27th. It's fighting for equality. It's fighting for justice. It's fighting for those who we love. And so I just think the energy will be really, really interesting during that time. When she gets to Pisces, she really takes on a whole different flavor. Pisces, Venus is exalted at Pisces. Like, she's more feminine, I would say, at Pisces. She's more, she's able to create these like beautiful works of art in these sort of ecstatic highs of love and pleasure. So, and keep in mind, Venus has already gone through Pisces, and she's going to be revisiting these areas. So she's going back through Pisces, and she already went through Pisces. So, let's say that you had like a love affair or something come up when Venus was direct in Pisces. You might be revisiting that, right? It might be like, okay, am I really feeling these like highs of pleasure? I would keep note on what is happening around April 1st, because Venus will encounter the North Node. The North Node has to do with hunger and desire. More. The North Node wants more and more and more, and it's hungry for more. It's head of the dragon. And so we might be feeling this intense longing or intense desire around this period of time. So kind of I would maybe note kind of where that is happening for you, or notice kind of what you are longing for or what you are desiring around that time. Venus will eventually go direct about April 12th at about 24 degrees of Pisces. So that's a little bit about Venus retrograde kind of collectively, general kind of notes on guidance and sort of what to expect. Let's talk about what's happening for your sign during this time. Okay, let's look at horoscopes for your sign now. I personally would start with your rising sign, and if you want, you can work in your sun or your moon. But rising sign, I think, is going to be more on the nose because that's how they're designed. That's how astrology works. And if you don't have your rising sign, you can calculate your birth chart for free. So on the internet, I like astro-seek.com or astro.com. You just have to have your precise birth time. Yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. And obviously, I don't have your birth chart in front of me, so these are going to be more general. Remember, I do birth chart readings in predictive astrology professionally. So if you are wanting a more, kind of precise sort of workup, you can get a hold of me at dogstaroracle.com, which is my website. So let's go ahead and get into it. So Aries rising. Okay, so definitely one of the, kind of bigger sort of signs here because Venus is going retrograde in your sign. So if you're Aries rising, Venus would be going retrograde in your sign. I think you're one of the signs that I would think, you might be sort of playing with your appearance a little bit more because your first house where Venus is going retrograde is sort of how you show up in the world. It is your appearance. It's your attitude and approach to life. It's your physical body. It's like your energy and aura, right? So Venus going retrograde here, we might be sort of playing with our appearance, or how we show up in the world. We really might be feeling these Venus themes of like relationships as well. Very literally, I think, maybe like questioning some of your relationships, or maybe just kind of going into more introspection about your relationships. And this is because Venus in your chart actually rules your 7th house of partnership and one-on-one connections. I would also kind of keep in mind too that Venus does rule money for you as well, and your finances and kind of what you're spending on. So for you, I would say you might be kind of reconsidering your spending. You might be reconsidering your budget during Venus retrograde. I would maybe kind of try to chill on like big luxury items, especially ones that are very kind of impulsive. When Venus goes into Pisces, which for you is, I forget when. When Venus goes into Pisces on March 27th through the rest of the retrograde through about April 13th, your Venus will be going through your 12th house, which is your private life, like things having to do with your sort of inner psychology, your subconscious. The 12th house can also be it's kind of giving like, it's like there's going to be some like very overt kind of themes when Venus is in Aries, but when Venus goes into Pisces, this is a more inward journey for you. I would say this can also be to like maybe having a connection with someone that is more secret in nature or behind closed doors, or we're working on something creative that is, kind of going on in secret or going on in like the confines of our bedroom. I would say also this would be a really good time to kind of get into nature or kind of get into like your sort of self-care kind of healing kind of energy, because this could really be a time when you're sort of working on, healing something that's sort of very sort of deep within and kind of bringing it to the surface. But yeah, I think Venus in Pisces for you is a more kind of introspective time until Venus goes direct and goes back into Aries, essentially. So So yeah, I would say second half of this Venus retrograde is more kind of introspective for you. Taurus rising, Venus is going retrograde in your 12th house. So when it goes retrograde in Aries, Venus being relationships and beauty and pleasure, 12th house can be secret relationships or kind of things kind of sort of going on kind of beneath the surface. So your Venus retrograde may be very hidden from view from other people. You really could be sort of deeply questioning relationships. Venus is your ruling planet. So this could just be a very kind of more deep sort of inner work time for you. If you're feeling like your spark is just like a little bit off, that's very normal. If you're like, none of my stuff feels like I like it right now. I don't feel like I don't like my clothes. I don't like the way I look. That's very possible with your ruling planet kind of stationing retrograde. So this really symbolizes, like a major kind of introspective time for you with Venus going retrograde in your hidden 12th house. So you might be doing some more deep kind of inner work, some sort of work on your subconscious. You might even be finding out ways that you might be getting in your own way, essentially. You might also be finding out like which relationships are actually for you and which relationships really are not for you. I would also keep in mind that Venus does rule your work and health sector as well. So you might also be kind of reconfiguring work stuff. You might be reconfiguring how you take care of yourself and your physical health as well, because Libra is on your 6th house, and of course Venus rules Libra. When Venus goes into Pisces around March 27th, Venus will retrograde back into your 11th house. So this is a more public kind of Venus for you. You might be questioning or reconfiguring what your goals are, like your wishes and hopes for the future. And there may be some stuff coming up within friendships. Perhaps like we're kind of rethinking our friendships and our alliances, what groups we're part of, what social circles that we are a part of. We could be revisiting sort of older friends from the past as well. Because remember, like Venus retrograde could also be going into the past for things. So yeah, so that's what I have for Venus retrograde for Taurus rising. Gemini rising. Venus is going retrograde in your 11th house first. So Venus goes retrograde at the beginning of March in Aries. She will be going retrograde in your 11th house. Remember, there's a lot happening in your 11th house with the Mercury retrograde here, and also with the eclipse here happening later in the month. So 11th house stuff is friends, it's allies, it's groups and associations that you are a part of. Excuse me, keep burping of coffee. So, it's possible that you're maybe rethinking friendships, and it's possible that you're rethinking the groups that you're part of, social media groups that you're part of, organizations, could be stuff happening with colleagues as well. It's also possible that you're kind of rethinking your goals, wishes, and hopes for the future. Keep in mind that Venus does rule your 5th house of romance and pleasures and things that are fun. So, like, you really could be one of those signs that's like, I'm not sure if this creative hobby is for me anymore, or revisiting a creative project from the past, or, possibly even revisiting a love interest from the past as well, and kind of saying like, is this for me, or is there something I need to tie up here? And when Venus goes into Pisces on March 27th, Venus will be coming back into your 10th house. This is maybe a time that you're maybe rethinking career things. It's also possible that you can really shine in your career and public and professional sort of image right now with Venus coming back into Pisces. It's like you're getting a redo at something in career, something where you're promoting yourself or putting yourself out there. It could be a time when you're maybe receiving some attention or praise from like a boss, authority figure, or just receiving some sort of, attention kind of in general. I do see this as like a helpful kind of time, but you're maybe redoing something or revisiting something, maybe career-wise here. So that is going to be the rest of your Venus retrograde story. Remember, Venus will go direct on April 12th. So Cancer rising. Venus is going to go retrograde in your career sector. So, I do see Venus in Aries, this first part of the Venus retrograde, a little bit more bumpy just because Venus can be a little bit more challenged in this Aries. So this could be a time when maybe you're rethinking career things. You're like, I'm not satisfied at kind of what I'm doing with career or with my work. You're possibly kind of rethinking relationships within your career and workspaces, within your career and workspace as well. I also wanted to point out that Venus does rule home and family things, and those things can be coming up for you as like a reconnection, a re-deepening, or rethinking something, as well as like your friends, your colleagues, your social circles can also very much come into play during a Venus retrograde as well, because Venus rules that part of your chart. So on March 27th, Venus will go into your 9th house of spirituality, higher mind, travel, other cultures, publishing, and media. So it is possible that we're like revisiting something, maybe revisiting a desire to do something with higher education, to expand our mind, to learn something, to travel, kind of feed this part of ourselves, or to feed our spirituality. It's possible that we're redoing or rethinking or resubmitting something for, publishing or social media, like, oh, I really wanted to to do this YouTube channel. I never did it. It might be a time that you kind of rethink that, because a retrograde can be about revisiting things from the past. So it sort of goes from like this more kind of career focused Venus energy to kind of maybe rediscovering your why, like what feeds you spiritually. And when Venus goes direct, it's like you're going to get this chance to really kind of do pedal to the metal in these areas. But I definitely think this could be part of a career kind of makeover for you, especially because we have a solar eclipse in Aries later this month. And you're really kind of getting your groove back, Cancer rising. Mars was retrograding your sign for feels like forever. It's gone direct recently. So there's really kind of a green light to maybe take some sort of action here. Oh. So let's look at what computer I'm on. I have 3 screens in front of me. Okay. Leo rising. Venus is going to go retrograde in your 9th house. So we're rethinking, revisiting, kind of pedaling backwards a little bit. When it comes to your higher mind, your spirituality and philosophy, your beliefs about the world, things involving travel, other cultures, or things possibly involving a publishing or media or like social media things. It also could be higher education. So maybe rethinking one of these topics. It could be like, I was thinking about going for a master's degree, but I'm not sure. It could be, maybe like rethinking some travel plans. There could certainly be like relationship stuff that pops up with like a person from a different cultural background, from a person from another place. I also would keep in mind that Venus does rule career things for you as well. So there can be some career themes that pop up, as well as things involving like your daily routine and communication space as well, because Venus rules both those houses for you. But I really want you to pay special attention to the higher education, spirituality, beliefs, travel stuff. Venus will go retrograde into your 8th house of shared resources and money around March 27th. So this could be a time when maybe we are actually attracting money from a source that is not like a paycheck. So, oops, hi, Kitty. That's my cat. She's just wanting to sit on my lap. She can't right now. Sorry, Kitty. So she always feels so rejected. So, receiving money or receiving funds from like, I don't know, an investment account or from an inheritance, or it could be a time when you might be better at monetizing money from clients, maybe from the past, right? Like freelance sort of income. Or maybe just like revisiting, like, hey, I submitted for a grant, I didn't get it. You might want to try again during this time, kind of revisiting these topics, because 8th house is any money that you are connected to, could be partners' money as well. The 8th house is like the intricacies of emotions and other connections we have in like our relationships as well. So it could just be about like really revisiting some emotional intimacy stuff. Like, am I letting myself, do I have guards up or walls up in like relationships? Is that something I need to kind of work on? It also could be kind of re-looking at some buried emotions as well, like buried emotional trauma, and really kind of approaching that with like compassion and forgiveness and grace, because Venus will be spending quite a bit of time in this part of your chart. The good thing about Venus spending so much time here is, Venus is elevated when she is in Pisces. She has more ability to attract the things that she wants to attract in Pisces. So especially if we're looking at money stuff, this can be good for building up your financial security connection to money that isn't like directly a paycheck. So let's go ahead and move on. Virgo. I think you're really one of us is really going to be feeling this Venus retrograde. First of all, Venus starts off retrograde in your 8th house, revisiting, rethinking where we're putting our money, where we're putting our investments, student loans, grants, child support, partners' money, any money that we're connected to that is not directly ours via a paycheck. So also matters of inheritance, taxes, your will, your estate, that kind of thing. Also just kind of thinking too, this could be, I don't know why I want to say this, but like, do I deserve this money? Like that kind of stuff is maybe what we're maybe thinking about. And also kind of looking at how we share things, how we share money, how we share emotions and resources and stuff. And when we're in close relationships with people, like those deep emotional things, the trust, intimacy that happens in relationships, are really, that's coming up during this Venus retrograde for you. And I would really double down on the finances piece, because Venus does rule finances for you in your chart, as well as, where is Taurus? There we go. Venus also rules higher education, beliefs, spirituality, and travel. So those themes can certainly come up as well. I would place emphasis on the 8th house stuff that I talked about. So the sharing money, the intimacy, finances, that stuff. When Venus goes into Pisces on March 27th, it takes on a whole different flavor. Really, it's putting emphasis on partnership. Benefits through partnership. You really might be rethinking your relationships here, your dynamics in relationships. How do I want to connect and be in my partnerships, whether it's business, business, romantic, platonic, all of your one-on-one relationships are really getting highlighted here with Venus retrograde. This could really be an opportunity to deepen these partnerships, or Venus really might be bringing up to you like, hey, like, are you really cherished and valued? Are you giving that to your partner? Are you sharing and balancing? Or are you kind of holding back somehow? Are there like expectations that you feel like aren't getting fulfilled? Or do you feel like love is conditional, or is it unconditional? Like these things I do feel like are really coming up for you during this retrograde. And given that it's Venus will be in such a critical part of your chart, I do just feel like you're going to be feeling this Venus retrograde a lot. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing, just saying you're going to be feeling this retrograde a lot. So Libra rising, you're really one of these signs that I think are going to be feeling this retrograde a lot as well, as Venus will be stationing retrograde in your 7th house of partnership. So I wonder if this first part of the retrograde might be a little bit bumpier, possibly, or it just feels very prominent. Just because Venus can be a little bit uncomfortable in the sign of Aries. I feel like Venus going retrograde in Aries in your partnership sector may have you just kind of sticking up for yourself a little bit more when it comes to your relationships, really feeling like, am I feeling fulfilled? Whether it's romantic, business, partnership, platonic, whatever. I feel like you're going to be revisiting sort of formal agreements that you're having in your partnerships and relationships. And Venus in Aries is a little bit more feisty, and she's going to be like, you're not paying attention to me. You're not giving me the things I want. So that does feel pretty loud to me. Also because Venus is your ruling planet. So, generally you might kind of feel like you're going through a more maybe introspective process. Like you might be feeling like the things that normally light you up, and, Libra rising, you have such a sense of beauty and creating beautiful things around you, and creating, beauty in your partnerships and balance. You might feel like that's just a little bit off, or there's something going on with you during this retrograde because your ruling planet is going through her own journey. So keep in mind through approximately these 40 days, while Venus is retrograde, you're going through like your own kind of internal process. So there's nothing wrong with you, or, you can also feel amazing too. Yeah, I'm not, but I do feel like something personally is saying for you. I also would say how you share your money, where you put your money, estate taxes stuff, inheritance stuff might be coming up for you through this retrograde as well, because Venus rules that part of your chart. So Venus will be going into Pisces on March 27th, kind of shifting the energy away from more overt relationship themes to how you take care of yourself, your health and beauty routines, how you work, where you work, who you work with, relationships with coworkers, relationships with employees. That's going through some kind of redo. We could be revisiting job things from the past, health things from the past as well. Maybe revisiting work relationships from the past as well. This could also be a time when, like, I don't know, you get like a crush at the gym too, but that might have like a little bit more like profound effect on you, I'm just saying. And like the reason I say that's because Venus, love, pleasure, beauty in your sixth house places are like gyms, or the yoga studio, or something like that. So those themes kind of come up during that sort of second half of the retrograde. So let's look at Scorpio. Scorpio, Venus is going through your sixth house, or excuse me, Venus will be retrograding your sixth house. Maybe feeling a little dissatisfied where you're working or what you're doing with work, or what your work routine or schedules look like, maybe how you take care of yourself, how you work out, what you put in your body. So I think you're going to maybe wanting to bring some spark or some pleasure back into this. So don't be afraid to change it up. Also, things could be coming up with pets as well. That's also a very sixth house matter, but work, how you work, employees, your relationships that you're having at work, maybe even sparking up something like in the gym or the yoga studio or where you work out. Again, themes of how you take care of yourself, where you work, how you work, how you do it. You might be a little dissatisfied, or there could be more introspection or just changes going on in those areas. Venus is going retrograde. Venus will be going retrograde into Pisces on the 27th. So she'll be shifting into your fifth house. This is possible that maybe that there is maybe a significant connection romantically coming in for you. Perhaps we're revisiting a connection from the past. Maybe we're revisiting a creative project, or maybe we're just trying to feel like a spark and creatively, pleasure-wise. Maybe we're trying to do something different, like life has gotten a little stale. Venus and Pisces might be like, look at creating beauty around you, create beauty in a different way, connect with different people. Or maybe we're just sort of working out things in our kind of like love and romantic life. It also could be something to do with like a child or children or pregnancy, childbirth. Something could be coming up with that. We might be taking another look at it, or something could be going on with a child's lives also too. Also for you, Scorpio, Venus does rule relationships for you, generally speaking, because you have Taurus on the seventh house. Venus rules Taurus. Every Venus retrograde, you're really going to be looking at relationships, just generally speaking, your one-on-one partnerships, as well as just like needing maybe a little bit of like self-healing kind of time. Don't be afraid of a little extra self-care, because Venus does rule your 12th house, so like subconscious self and healing and private time and all of that stuff. But work and health and romantic and pleasure stuff are really coming up for you during this Venus retrograde. So it'll be interesting to see how that manifests for you, Scorpio. Sagittarius rising. Venus will be going retrograde in your fifth house in Aries first. So something's up with your romantic connections, with the ways that you have fun, your creative and artistic energy. We're either revisiting projects from the past. Maybe we're feeling like the things that would bring us pleasure and our hobbies aren't really doing it for us. We could be losing the spark in something like romantic, or we could be feeling a spark like with like a person from the past, or something significant comes in romantically. I would say don't jump into it if possible. I mean, don't like make any sudden committed decisions, but enjoy it if something happens. Because Venus going retrograde in your fifth house of sex and romance could frankly be very juicy, or we could kind of be revisiting our creative and sexual energy, or just kind of like looking at it in a different way. Venus is going retrograde in your fourth house, home and family on the 27th. This could really be a time when we're really cultivating relationships with our family, or we're like healing. I think this could offer some healing energy to things connected to parents, to family, to home, where we were raised, things like that. This could also be a really good time to sort of redecorate, redo things connected to the home. We could be feeling sort of re-inspired to be like, all of a sudden, this carpet that we've had for 25 fucking years, I'm sick of it. We're going to be doing something else. We're going to put some different art on the walls. So it's sort of redoing, rethinking things connected to the home, or relationships with family. Couple other bonus things. Venus does rule health and work things for you. So you might be thinking about different places you want to work out, or different workouts you want to do, or how you take care of yourself, how you work, where you do it, who you do it with, as well as friends. Like friends, social group stuff can also come in for you as well, because Venus rules your 6th and 11th houses. So, Capricorn rising. So Venus is going to be going retrograde at your 4th house, family, home, parents, how you're raised, property, real estate. So rethinking, redoing, maybe not redoing, just like rethinking, or the focal point for you, I do think, is going to be relationships with family, something to do with home, with parents, maybe where you're living, things around real estate and property could definitely come up around this retrograde. And again, think about what was happening maybe 8 years ago during that March and April timeframe, and kind of look and see what was happening. It could be something happening with a family member. I'm kind of thinking maybe we're going to be revisiting family connections, or a family member kind of coming in from the past, something like that. But Venus is love and connection and pleasure. So we could be kind of rethinking like our home decor. Even it's like, I'm sick of this, country aesthetic from the 90s, or whatever the fuck it is. My mom has like, I think the reason I brought that up is my mom has like a country aesthetic, which I actually really like, but that's just like the first thing that popped in my head. I'm like, what? Like, why do we have ducks on the wall from 1995? Could be like, I'm going to get different ducks and put different ducks on the wall. So I'm thinking it could be things around the home or family that come up for you during this Venus retrograde. Venus also will be sliding into your 3rd house of neighbors, siblings, communication matters, your daily routines, your commute, and you get around. So Venus going retrograde here could be like, I'm taking a day trip. I'm going to go to some place from the past that I'm sort of revisiting. I'm changing how I get around. Changing something with my car or my commute. Something significant with your siblings could come in here as well. Something with we could be looking at like retaking a class, or learning something that we wanted to learn before. We're kind of coming back to that idea. But your sort of daily routines, like your coffee shop, where you go shopping, your daily kind of errands, essentially are kind of up for review. Like, I'm sick of going to the same store, I'm going somewhere else. So the same coffee shop, I'm going to a new coffee shop. Venus in Pisces is going to allow for more pleasure, I think, than she does in Aries. So I think it's going to be exploring things to do with the mind, things with travel, and kind of how you get around in your daily routines. I would also add for you, Capricorn rising, that Venus going through your 3rd house here. This could be an excellent time to do a lot of divination, like a tarot card of the day, journal about a tarot card, like connect to meditation, because this is the house of the goddess. So I think connecting to some source of divinity, but just like pulling a tarot card every day, or like writing in your journal every day, is something that you could experience a lot of beauty and have a lot of significance for you during this Venus retrograde. Also, Venus does rule romance things for you, your creative, artistic energy, and children. And it does rule career things for you as well. So those are two kind of bonus areas that may be coming in for you during this Venus retrograde. Aquarius rising, Venus is going to be going retrograde in your third house. So we could, things involving our daily commute, our daily routines, daily errands, how we get from point A to point B, those things come up during a third house transit. It also could be, your siblings could be having something significant happening in their lives. Like you could find out hey, my sibling's getting married. That could definitely be a Venus retrograde in the third house. It doesn't have to be that deep. Something with your neighbors, there could be some stuff with your neighbors coming up, like, oh, my neighbor's moving, or I'm getting a new one, or I ran into a childhood friend from the past is also a very third house thing. It also could be rethinking communication projects, communication matters, as well as you could be also just being like, I've been taking this course. I'm kind of rethinking which course I'm taking, because third house can be like certifications and courses and things that you're learning. But I kind of feel like if your commute, if your daily routines, if the people in your lives, there could be something about it growing stale, and you're like, I want to change something about it. Venus will be revisiting Pisces on the 27th of March, which means she's moving into your second house of money. So this could be like a chance to attract more money to you, maybe revisiting some sort of source of income from before, or how you make money, or your streams of income. I'm gonna say this could be a really good time to thrift if you're if you want to shop and look for bargains, looking for things that are overlooked. And also just kind of rethinking, and I would say try to maybe limit really big luxury impulsive spending purchases, because they might look different later after it's gone direct. But I would also think that you might be rethinking kind of your own self-worth and values, like how much am I worth? Like how do I let other people treat me? That kind of thing. Venus also rules your fourth house of home and family, so that might come up as like a bonus kind of thing for you during Venus retrograde. Just every Venus retrograde, generally, there might be some kind of family, home element to it. As well as like spirituality, higher education, and travel, because Venus does rule that part of your chart as well. So, Pisces rising. Yeah, you're a big one. So, Venus is going to go retrograde first in your second house. Maybe you're rethinking, or maybe something is coming up with the money that you receive for income, how you spend your money, self-worth, and values. That can be a really big part of this retrograde for you. What am I saying? We can be looking at like income sources from the past, kind of rethinking how we're spending, how we're earning our money, and our sort of streams of income. Anything with assets and values, how we value ourselves, is a very big part of this retrograde. Venus also does rule like shared finances, like taxes, money that you share with a partner, insurance, loans, credit, grants, all these things too. So that could be like a bonus thing that kind of comes in for you, is like re-looking at those things. Venus going into your sign, I think, will be interesting and I think helpful. So Venus going retrograde into your first house, it's like you might, so this happens on the 27th, and Venus is retrograde here until about the 12th of April. That'll be interesting because it's like you might be feeling like you want to change something about your appearance, about how we dress or how we look, how we approach the world. Venus in your sign does give you a little bit more magnetism. This could be an interesting time for relationships, because you're going to have a little bit extra shine to you, I think, when Venus is retrograde in Pisces. So you're going to have some energy around like creating beauty, creating art, like maybe doing these things in a different way, not doing the things that you usually do, approaching it from like an unconventional standpoint, approaching relationships from an unconventional standpoint. The relationship stuff may really be more significant for you, where you might just feel more congenial and wanting to connect, or really like revisiting your relationship stuff while Venus is in Pisces, starting on the 27th. So that should be interesting. And I think Venus retrograde is really kind of a alchemical introspective time. I'm interested to see kind of what happens for you when Venus goes into Pisces. But I think you're going to be rethinking money stuff. And then when she gets into your sign, it's like, okay, like I'm kind of interested in approaching the world differently. I want to wear something different. This version of myself needs a little bit of an upgrade, essentially. So that's what we have for Venus retrograde. I hope you found this video helpful. And again, know that I do personal birth chart readings. I can go into a lot more detail. And I hope this Venus retrograde treats you well. And I hope you learned a lot from this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye, y'all.